Hi everyone. Good morning. Thank you for coming to today's event. আমি বাংলায় বলি, আমার নাম সাজিদ। I'm the director at the Center for Enterprise Society. আপনারা অনেকেই জানেন যে ইউল্যাবে আমাদের বেশ কিছু রিসার্চ সেন্টার আছে। CES হচ্ছে আমাদের এই 6টা রিসার্চ সেন্টারের মধ্যে একটি রিসার্চ সেন্টার। আমরা সাধারণত এন্টারপ্রাইজ, বিজনেস, সোসাইটি এইসব টপিকে রিসার্চ করে থাকি এবং আমাদের রিসার্চের একটা উদ্দেশ্য হচ্ছে যে আমাদের ক্লাসরুম লেকচারসকে ইনফর্ম করা, পাবলিক ডিবেট তৈরি করা, ওভারঅল অ্যাওয়ারনেস ক্রিয়েট করা বিভিন্ন প্রেসিং টপিকসে এবং কাটিং এজ ইস্যুসে। আজকের টকটা ইজ পার্ট অফ আ CES সিরিজ। আমরা CES প্রতিনিয়ত একটা টক সিরিজ অর্গানাইজ করি, লিডারশিপ টক সিরিজ নামে, যেখানে আমরা বিভিন্ন ইন্ডাস্ট্রি লিডারদের ইনভাইট করি আপনাদের সাথে interact with this so that you have an understanding of career prospects that are possible for you, of career paths that are possible, and generally, hopefully, learn something, get inspired, etc. So without further ado, I would like to request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Imran Rahman, to take the stage and introduce the speaker. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning everybody. It's my really pleasure to welcome the team led by Sylvana Sinha to ULAB. Welcome all of you. I'm sure I'll get to know you a bit better over lunch. Looking forward to that. But just a few words really for the benefit of our guests. Something about ULAB. We are a liberal arts university set up in 2004 by a family, a business family led by Mr. Qazi Shahid Ahmed. And it's a non-profit. That means it was a philanthropic endeavor on behalf of the family, and they wanted to give back something to the society, and they thought the best project would be an educational institution, particularly a university. And because Mr. Shah's 3 sons studied in liberal arts colleges in the USA, I guess they played a big role in convincing him that why not have a university modeled after the famous liberal arts universities and colleges of the USA. And it's been a nice journey. We are kind of nearing our it's the 13th year, I think, because we started in 2004, so we'll turn 13 on 1st of October this year. I've been fortunate enough to have been involved for 11 of those 13 years. Very different because it's a very multidisciplinary in its approach. We try and get our students to think beyond and expose them beyond their narrow major areas. We are very focused on establishing integrating a research culture both for our faculty and our students. This is something quite a challenge because traditionally the universities of Bangladesh, even the famous Dhaka University, started off as such a famous research university in the 1920s, but subsequently kind of ended up being just a teaching university. So that culture is kind of, we're having to restart this whole thing about research and trying to convince students and teachers alike why it's so important to do research. And the other thing is, of course, exposing our students to practitioners like yourselves. Us teachers just talking about entrepreneurship, in classroom really it doesn't do it. They need to hear from Sylvana Sinha. Sylvana is the founder and CEO of Praava Health, which is a company which aims to increase the range of quality, reliable, affordable healthcare options in Bangladesh. Before this, she was a lawyer and she advised governments in Afghanistan, the Middle East and Asia on governance and legal reform. Ms. Sinha also served as a foreign policy advisor to the 2008 presidential campaign of the then Senator Barack Obama. You guys know who he is, no? Just joking. She later joined the World Bank, where she worked on judicial reform and human rights in Afghanistan and on other issues, including conflict and development and women's economic rights in Islam. Ms. Sinha is a graduate of Columbia Law School, where she earned a certificate from the Parker School of Comparative and International Law. So this is just a brief introduction. I'm sure she'll tell a bit more about her and her work at the moment in Bangladesh. So can we give her a really rousing welcome? all of us. Thank you.
The one thing that I want to try to impart to all of you, and that is my great hope for all of you, is that you will find in your life the thing that you love. And that is what I have been searching for, and what I have found finally in my career and in my life. This is one of my favorite quotes that's just on the screen there from Steve Jobs. There may be some of you who already know what that thing is that makes you want to get out of bed every day. That's not many people, I would have to say, at this stage of life. We live in a really, really exciting time, actually. According to people who study knowledge creation, prior to the 1900s, knowledge was being created approximately once a century. Like, it was doubling once a century. And by World War II, that rate increased to about every 25 years. Today, the estimate is that knowledge is actually doubling every single year. And according to IBM, with the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence and everything that's all the advances that are happening, that could actually reach a doubling of knowledge every 12 hours. That is actually phenomenal to think about. Within actually one person's lifetime. I mean, there are people who are alive during World War II who are still alive, and for the rate of knowledge creation to have gone from every 25 years to every 12 years is really phenomenal to think about. So we live in a really amazingly exciting time, and every single day there are advances happening in disruptive technology, in genetics, artificial intelligence, medicine, and I think that it's hard to keep up actually with the pace of knowledge creation, but I'll tell you a little bit about myself. You can probably tell from my accent that I'm American. I was born in the United States, but my family is originally from Bangladesh. I visited Bangladesh a lot growing up. All of my apon chachas, mamas, pupus, and my khala were here, and my dada was here also. And so I was always very affected. I have some pictures actually of visiting my visit to Bangladesh as a child. And actually, my cousin is a lecturer here, Saba Chowdhury. I don't know if some of you might know her. So I visited Bangladesh often, and actually as an American visiting Bangladesh as a child, I was very affected by everything here. I was really struck by, I think, the energy and enthusiasm of this place and the pace of it and the joy with which people do everything, actually, despite what, coming from a place like America where you have just double the population of Bangladesh, actually, in a huge expanse of land where everyone has so much space. You have so many people crammed into this small space, and they're all really happy. And they're also really creative. I think that when you have a scarcity of resources, a small amount of space, people have to be creative. Necessity is the mother of invention. And I was very touched by my visits to Bangladesh growing up, and I always knew that I wanted to do something for Bangladesh, but I didn't know actually what it would be, and I didn't know when it would be. But I always had that in my heart, that I wanted to come back and do something. I was very ambitious when I was young. I wanted to study everything that I could to help me to understand the world and what motivated people. I was really interested in history. I went to college I went to Wellesley College in Massachusetts, which is where Hillary Clinton went, and Madeleine Albright, Madam Chiang Kai-shek. It's a women's college, actually. And I studied philosophy and economics. My first summer after college, I actually came to Bangladesh, and I did an internship with the Grameen Bank. And I was really struck by Dr. Yunus's journey, actually, in building the Grameen Bank, and it actually took him 10 years to get the bank legally established. And I was very interested in that interplay between law and development, and kind of kept that in my mind as I continued my studies. I went back to the US. My next 2 summers during college, I actually interned at the White House during the presidency of Bill Clinton. And I was working at the National Security Council and then at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I was extremely inspired by the power of the United States to influence the world. And I had also been informed by my own family's experience, in Bangladesh in the 1971 war, and my understanding of the U.S.'s influence in the creation of this country. Because I wanted to understand the legal construct of the world. I was also interested in economics, so I also pursued a master's in international development. I went to law school at Columbia, as the Vice Chancellor mentioned, and I did my master's in international development at Harvard. And So I felt like I was always struck by this interesting interplay between law and development, and I wanted to understand international political economy and the legal norms that govern that. So I went to school in New York and Boston, and then I graduated and joined one of the biggest law firms in the world in New York, practiced law there. I felt it was important that if I did the law degree, I needed to practice law for a while and understand what that meant, although I actually always knew that I wouldn't practice law. A common question I get, which our intern just asked me, is how do I feel being a lawyer, and how did I get from law to healthcare? And trying to give you some of that background now, but I always knew I wouldn't be a lawyer forever. But I wanted the framework that it gave me in terms of my thinking processes, and I also wanted the credibility that it gave me. I knew that as a woman I would probably always be underestimated, and I felt that there were certain things that with education couldn't be taken away from me. And so I practiced law, and still interested in US foreign policy. In 2007, I had the opportunity to work for Senator Barack Obama in his presidential campaign. I did that while I was at the law firm, and this was me actually at the Democratic National Convention when he was being nominated in August of 2008. It was amazing. It was a very memorable moment in my life, actually. I hadn't been sure that the United States would elect someone named Barack Hussein Obama. I didn't think they could elect someone actually necessarily whose middle name was Hussein, but I was proven wrong, and I was very happy to have been proven wrong. It was a very overwhelming moment for me, and I started to think, should I join the administration? I had the opportunity, I was working with the people who were joining the administration, but I wanted to have more experience working abroad. I wanted to get a better understanding of the world in order to inform the perspective that I wanted to lend. So I actually accepted a job to move to Afghanistan with the World Bank, and I was running the legal reform piece of a multi-donor trust fund. I was really excited to move to Afghanistan. It's a beautiful country, and it was the perfect interplay of my interest in law and development and foreign policy. And I spent most of 4 years working for the World Bank and the United Nations in the Middle East, in Afghanistan and South Asia. And to be honest, I grew a little bit frustrated. My whole plan had been to go get this experience, then come back and join the US government. But I realized that I'm probably not cut out to be a bureaucrat, although I deeply respect the work that they do. I realized that for what I was craving in my career, which was really to sink my teeth into something and grow at the pace that I knew I was capable of growing, it wasn't really for me. I also grew a little bit frustrated with the work that I was doing in the UN system at the World Bank. I felt that there was a gap in terms of impact, and there needed to be more accountability. Again, there's a role for those organizations, and I deeply respect the work that they do. But for me, I wasn't being able to grow at the pace that I wanted to grow, and that I knew that I could. And so I moved back to New York, and I went back to legal practice, and started thinking about what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Actually, I think I have a picture of myself in Afghanistan, too, that I wanted to show. Yeah. So that kind of boring, but you don't put signs up that say the World Bank when you're in a place like Afghanistan because it makes it a target. But you can see all the barbed wire. The World Bank office is to the right there, and that's NATO headquarters on the left side there. So I was really missing the intellectual rigor and the accountability that the private sector offered, and so I went back to a law firm. I knew that I could. I had this belief in myself that I could do more than this. And I struggled with it because in those moments, I also told myself, it's so self-indulgent to want more from your career. Most people, hundreds of generations of human beings, have spent their entire lives sowing corn. So I was stuck. I was deeply unhappy. I couldn't figure out what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I had all these amazing opportunities. I've met every Democratic president who's ever served during my lifetime. From President Carter to President Obama. I've met with and briefed US ambassadors, and I've gotten coins from generals. I mean, I'm so lucky. I had all of these amazing opportunities. Why wasn't I happy? So I started thinking about Bangladesh. This is when I started thinking about Bangladesh. This was around 2013. My parents moved back to Bangladesh about 15 years ago, so I was visiting more often. And my mother had to have an emergency appendix surgery in one of the best hospitals in Bangladesh. And unfortunately, that surgery did not go very well. We actually, first the surgery was delayed and her appendix ruptured. And then there were a lot of complications after the surgery. And I still have a very stark recollection of running up the stairs, chasing the doctor. My sister and I were chasing the doctor, trying to get him to answer our questions, that why was our mother vomiting bile? We had no idea what was going on. And unfortunately, he wasn't really responsive to our questions. He would barely come visit her. As soon as she was stable enough, we actually flew her to Bangkok, where she had another surgery. And then a year later, she had to have another surgery to fix the problems that that surgery had created. And so I had this deeply personal experience of a failure of the healthcare system here in Bangladesh. And I started thinking about that and whether there might be some kind of an opportunity there. As an economist, I also understood that Bangladesh was hitting a sweet spot in terms of economic growth and demographic indicators. And I also understood that there was a middle class that was transitioning the economy entirely. So I basically realized that this is a very exciting time in Bangladesh. I think that when there's perceived chaos is when there's opportunity. And I think that is why I decided to start thinking seriously about transitioning my career to moving to Bangladesh. For me, it wasn't actually moving back, it was moving here. I started to imagine a new kind of healthcare. I realized that most people couldn't fly to Bangkok to get a surgery fixed. So I thought, we need to find solutions that exist in Bangladesh. I didn't know what the answer was going to be.